I believe that the executive pastor's role, the assistant's role, is not to bring my vision to the church, but my role is to help him execute the vision that God has given him, put on his heart.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us once again on Art of the Assistant. And as I say every time we have an interview, I am excited about the interview today. I'm going to be interviewing a new friend of mine, Dr. Sanchez. As we talk, he asked me how I found him, and I honestly have no clue. The Lord wanted our paths to cross divinely, I guess. It was on LinkedIn, and I don't know if it was a recommendation to follow or what. And I hit it, and I saw a couple articles. I read them, and I thought, man, this is intriguing. I enjoyed his writing, and then started to do some homework to see where he pastored, and then that led to finding out that he is an assistant administrative executive pastor. And as soon as I read that, I knew I had to shoot an email out and see if we could set this interview up. And so, Chris, thank you so much for coming on and joining us this morning.
It is my pleasure to be here, Treg. Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. And tell us where you're coming from this morning.
This morning, I serve in Fayetteville, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta, and I live about 10 miles from my church in a little town called Sharpsburg, Georgia.
Okay, very good. So coming to us from Georgia, and again, just excited to have you on and to see what the Lord has just laid on your heart to encourage us with today. But just some things, Chris, to talk about. Can you tell us a little bit about your family? You were telling me earlier about your journey, even coming into the ministry, maybe how you started,
sure,
and how God brought you to where you are today.
My wife and I this summer celebrated our 25th anniversary. Wow. Melissa, I tell people the greatest thing, the biggest thing I love about her is she loves Jesus more than me.
Amen.
She's just a godly woman, and just doing life with her is amazing. We've got two grown children. Our son is 22. His name is Joshua. Our daughter is a senior in college. She's going to be a teacher. Her name is Hannah. She's 21. And they're both saved, both love the Lord, both active in church and various ministries in the church, and we're just so proud of them and how God's moving and working in their lives.
That's great. That's wonderful. And are the kids close to home? Are they away? Where are they now?
Our daughter is away. Truett McConnell University is a couple-hour drive from here, where she is. That's one of our 3 Georgia Baptist schools. Our son is in Valdosta. When we moved at the beginning of this year, he wanted to stay there. He graduated from high school there, a lot of friends there, and so he struck out on his own. He's got a roommate, and they're both involved in the church, the church that we transitioned from back at the beginning of the year. And so he's about a 3.5, 4-hour drive from here.
Okay, very good. And so, Chris, when did you officially start in ministry?
I entered vocational ministry January 1st of 2016.
Okay. So fill us in on that. Where were you prior to that, and how did the Lord bring you to that point in 2016?
Well, after I finished grad school in 2006, was picked up by a Home Depot subsidiary and moved us out to New Mexico and spent a couple of years there until the housing market collapsed back in 2008. We came back to Georgia, went back to our home church, and I met with my pastor there, and Dr. Richard Walker, and I told him that I just sensed God's call on my life to vocational ministry. And he told me, he said, well, it's about time. And I asked him, I said, well, why haven't you said anything to me before? And he said, it's not my call to answer. And so, but I do, so I didn't, obviously, that was 2008, started seminary online in 2009. And the options back then were far more limited than they are today. But I did the Master of Religious Education at Liberty University, and finished that up in 2012. And rolled pretty much straight into a Doctor of Education program at Southern Seminary. It's a modular program that requires a 1-week residency each semester, and the rest of the work is done online. So it worked for my schedule.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's really good. Yeah, I love that idea of the call. I think sometimes we miss that. I don't know. I have a hard time balancing between encouraging folks to go into ministry and at the same time making sure it's the Lord's work. And,
Yeah.
it's a tough balance. But when Jesus tells disciples, pray the Lord of the harvest that he will send forth laborers into the harvest.
Mm.
And then, chapter 10 and verse 1 says, and he called unto himself the 12. And this definitely, I think, the Lord's work. And our job is to pray that the Lord will do that work.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, when we
So,
look at that. And so when you stepped into ministry then, Chris, in 2016, what role did you fill, and how did that transition take place, and how did it go for you, your wife, and the family?
well, the summer of 2015, I left my last secular job to focus
Okay.
on writing my doctoral thesis,
Okay.
and that was a big step because,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we were stepping away from income that the family needed, but we just believed that God was in this.
Wow.
Finished up, and about October, started having conversations with a church in Valdosta that led to them calling us. We went in view of a call in December of 2015 and started right away January 1st of 2016 there.
Okay.
And that role was the education and outreach pastor.
Okay. Very good. And so what would be, as an education pastor, what was your primary focus in outreach?
Focusing on discipleship. We had at that time 28 adult Sunday school classes, and then of
Well,
course you've got your children's and your student
mhm.
ministry as
Yeah.
well. So all of that layered in there, about 40 Sunday school classes. So
Wow.
curriculum, recruiting teachers, training, that kind of thing. And then in terms of outreach, we did a monthly outreach on Monday nights where we would go out and into the community. We would go meet visitors, those kinds of things.
Okay. Yeah.
And then training as well, training people to use the various tools,
Yeah.
Three Circles, Romans Road, whatever, to
Mhm.
share their faith.
Wow. Wow. That's really good. And so you're settled in there. Obviously, it was a good relationship because your son's still there.
Yeah.
And so everything's going well. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, I think we're gonna move again. Tell 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 me about tell us about that, because one of the things we talk about a lot, and I think, as assistant pastors listen, is how do you know when it's time to go? And when is the Lord is an open door? The answer is it God shaking a tree? Sometimes we say.
Mhm.
So in your life, even if you could just get into some of the practical, doctor, with us on how you knew, okay, we'd been here for 6 years, it was time to make a transition.
Well, the having answered the call to go to Valdosta to start with, we knew, we had a sense of what it was like in our lives when God was moving and kind of
Mhm.
stirring and shaking the
Yeah.
tree. And so we kind of sensed that again. We
Okay.
were on the backside of COVID at that time. So, and a friend of mine, the pastor of my current church, we had been talking. I didn't know that they were getting ready to start looking for an executive pastor, but he had asked me to take a look at a job description, give him a little feedback on that, and I was happy to do that. And then over the summer, he called and asked if I knew anybody, and what he didn't really know at that time was that God was already moving in my heart, moving in
Mm,
my wife's heart.
mm.
And within 2 or 3 weeks of each other, we both sensed the same thing. And then we were over dinner or something, Treg, talking about it, and we were just like almost said the same thing at the same time.
Wow.
That we
Wow.
felt like our time in South Georgia was coming to a close. We didn't know what that was going to look like going forward, but we
Yeah.
believed that God was getting ready to move us, and so
Mm.
that kind of opened my mind and my heart to those conversations, that
Yeah.
just to be open to the possibility of going somewhere else and just seeing what
Yeah.
God would do.
Wow. Good. And so you received this call in proximity. How far are you from where you started? And, how many hours is the church now? And did you move homes? And how did that all work?
Yeah, we did have to relocate. I
Okay.
grew up in the Atlanta area, but I've never lived on the south side of town where
Okay.
we are currently. It's about 200 miles north of where we were living, so we had to
Okay.
sell a house and buy a house. All of the
Yeah.
things that you have
Yeah.
to do, and you learn your way around. And I remember the first time I drove from the new house to the church without using a Google Maps was like a big win. That took a little time. And then, of course, furniture, and then the
Yeah.
new house. It was an existing
Yeah.
home. We got projects,
Yeah.
honeydew list, sometimes we call it.
Yep. Yep.
But that whole transition actually went really smoothly.
Well,
We
good.
sold our house there quickly. We bought a house here quickly, and the church was fantastic, helping us move and get settled
Wonderful.
in. We were really grateful for that.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's yeah, especially in this day and age with the housing market the way it is, that's not always easy to do.
No, no, it's
That
not. And
area.
the financial realities too are a lot different. Our
Yeah.
mortgage rate was, doubled the interest
Yeah.
rate on the loan, those kinds of things. But
Yeah.
but we just believe that we were in God's will, and as different things fell into place, almost like clockwork.
Yeah.
They were just things that reaffirmed that we were following God and doing what He was calling us to do.
That's wonderful. So when you go into a new ministry like that, uh, are you spending a lot of time with the pastor trying to figure things out? And, how do you balance not taking too much of his time, but at the same time, you're still trying to learn the ropes? How's that going with that?
Well, the first year, best advice I've gotten in terms of starting at a new church is spend as much time as you can in your first year building relationships,
Hmm.
getting to know the people, finding out who the influencers are. Those are important things
Yeah.
for new executive to
Yeah.
learn. For a number of reasons. But
Right.
doing that, spending a good bit of time with the pastor. I believe that the executive pastor's role, the assistant's role, is not to bring my vision to the church, but my role is to help him execute the vision that God has given him, put on his heart.
Amen.
And so,
Amen.
but it takes time to discern what that is, hear what that
Yeah.
is, and then the different aspects and facets of how you go about executing that, and
Yeah.
where his heart is.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's exciting though to be able to do
It
that.
is.
You're the first executive pastor then to
I
be.
am. I am. They've
Okay.
not had an executive before, to my
Okay.
knowledge.
Okay. All right. Well, that's exciting times though, paving that way and coming in and doing that in ministry. Now, background then, Chris, I was reading on you a little bit of your background. You were very involved in Georgia with higher education and assert some rules, I believe, with that. And can you tell us a little bit about that and what you did in Georgia?
Absolutely. We've got three colleges, universities here in
Okay.
Georgia that are part of Georgia Baptist
Okay.
life. I got really involved with one of those, Truett McConnell University. It's in
Okay.
Cleveland, Georgia, an hour and a half or so north of Atlanta. Back in 2016, I was invited to join their board of visitors.
Okay.
And it's not a governing body or anything, but it's a group that promotes the school,
Hmm.
tries to steer students there, and bring others that can help support the mission of the
Yeah.
school, into a relationship with them. And I've been doing that for 8 years now, or
Oh,
about eight
wow.
years now, and love supporting the school.
Yeah.
The president there, Dr. Canner, is he's just a godly man, and the leadership there, the team that he's put together, is phenomenal. In fact, I believe so much in the school that both of my kids went there.
Yeah, that's great. I caught that when you're saying is that's where your daughter is. So
Yeah.
that says a
And
lot.
they were both on campus. I've taught some online classes for them as well.
Okay.
In the business school, interestingly, not over in the Christian studies program,
Yeah.
but in the business school.
Okay.
I'll support them any way that they need help.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing that for most of my ministry here in Georgia.
Wow. Wow. So when we're looking like as an assistant, and one of the things that was intrigued to me, Chris, about your life is you got your hand in a variety of things.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like from, working there at the college to working with, the education boards there in Georgia to higher education. And then obviously your blog, what, as the role of an assistant, do you feel like, okay, these were add-ons, or did you feel this is all part of your ministry as you served? And for
I haven't
me,
looked at it
like,
as an add-on.
okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
I say, because I think sometimes we're like, well, I need to be, in the office for this many hours, and then on my spare time, I'll do this or I'll do that. Or do you look at that as, as this is all part of your ministry and you're able to do this because of your role that you're playing there at the church?
I've viewed all of it as part of my ministry. I've been
Yeah.
blessed to be involved in a number of denominational roles, associational roles, since I entered ministry, and I'm grateful for those opportunities. The opportunity to be deeply involved with things at Truett McConnell has been a blessing, and I just look at it all as part of my overall ministry. And as God opens doors, a dear, dear saint that's with the Lord now used to tell me, "Oh, the Lord has opened that door for you. You must step through it."
Yeah.
And then writing, I deeply enjoy writing, and if any of that helps somebody on their own journey, I'm glad. A lot of the content tracked my journey through my master's program at Liberty, and that content still gets hundreds of hits a month.
Wow. Wow.
And so, yeah,
Wow.
so it's a blessing. And occasionally I'll have people, they'll email me, they'll ask questions. I mean, even just recently, earlier this year, I posted an article encouraging people to attend the Georgia Baptist Convention. And a
Mhm.
friend of mine I hadn't communicated with in a number of years reached out to me and wanted to know, hey, what are the issues? And so I told him,
Okay.
well, because they're bringing messengers. I said, hey, we're going to
Yeah.
be voting on a new constitution,
Yeah.
and we got a couple of things going on. You should probably share with them. So the every once in a while, God lets me know that that's making an impact somewhere. So
Yeah.
I keep doing it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, because I think sometimes we feel like, especially in the area of blogging, nobody's reading blogs anymore, or is this even worthwhile? But that's encouraging to know that, hey, the Lord's using that. And I
Hmm.
think too, I think writing is just a good practice for everyone.
I
You know,
agree.
it just helps us, is not just even writing sermons, but just writing thoughts, or writing, sitting
Mhm.
down and taking the time to put the ink on the paper. I think there's something special about that.
I agree. It helps me to organize my thinking. A lot of times I'll do a little research as I'm writing something, and it'll strengthen my view on something. Or at times, it's like, oh, I didn't know that, and it'll kind of change the direction of what I'm writing, and I'm writing what I'm thinking, of course.
Yeah.
But it helps me to organize my thoughts and to share them in a more articulate way.
Yeah, I think it's good. And I would, even some of the guys listening, well, I don't have an audience, or I can put on a website. I think even just a little newsletter to your church family
Hmm.
is a great start. Just putting that out there and just getting started with that writing. And so I think that's a worthwhile practice for sure for the guys to do. And from the time you started, you can just see, because would you start back in 2007? I think started doing some blogs and things I read.
Yeah, I got started blogging in 2007, and really leaned into it as I got going in seminary.
Yeah.
But just figuring out, I mean, from the using the tools that were available to create the site, and then getting you don't write 10,000 word blog posts.
Right.
750 to 1,250
Yep.
words. Somewhere that's kind of the sweet spot, and just learn, figuring that out, and then chronicling that journey. And
Yeah.
to my surprise, a lot of people were interested in that, and had questions that
Hmm.
the same guys and gals that I was in classes with had. And
Yeah.
so I like to think that some folks grew through that process along with me.
That's wonderful. I love that. And yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I think that you'll hear blogging is dead, or this, there's always opportunity for those things. And I think that God can use it, like you said, and you just don't know who can
Absolutely.
who can listen and take heed and be part of that. So I think that's great when you're looking in, especially in your role. I think sometimes guys will be sitting at their desk as an assistant pastor, and man, I wish I had more to do, or man, I wish I was, but there's always something to do.
Agreed. I've never sat in my office and said, "Oh wow, I wish I had more to do today."
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's always something to do. There's
Yeah.
always an individual to reach out to. There's always a hospital visit to go do. There's
Yeah.
there's always something going on with the facilities. An air
Yeah.
conditioning unit goes down or whatever. There's just always
Yeah.
something to do.
That's really good. Absolutely. Now, age difference between your pastor and where you come in. Is he
Uh,
older, same age? Where is he?
he is younger than me by about 14 years.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm serving.
Okay.
I'm serving under the leadership of my first millennial.
Wow. Wow. So tell us about that, because that is really unique. How is that going? Has there been any things that you've had to adjust to with a younger, working with a younger man? Because I'm guessing then he's mid-30s.
He's 39.
39. Okay. All right. And so how is that, and how's that relationship?
Well, the relationship is good. He is
Okay.
a remarkable leader.
Amen.
He's a fantastic communicator as well, and so and he's got very clear ideas, the direction that he wants things to go.
Hmm.
He spends time coaching staff and helping work through. Hey, we need to focus on this, or when we meet after an event, giving feedback on
Yeah.
what was good and what we can do better. Those kinds of things. Very, very in tune with relationships, very focused on relationships,
Hmm.
maybe more so than my previous pastor,
Okay.
and there's about a 20-year age difference between them.
Yeah.
And Dr. Foster was about 6 years older than me. So his leadership style I was more accustomed to. My current
Mhm.
pastor's leadership style, um, a little different than that,
Okay.
but
Okay.
good different.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And so when you say relationships, you just mean with members and community and areas like that?
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay.
Strong relationships with the members of the staff, deep relationships with the members of the congregation. He calls, literally phone call, to everybody on their birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he reaches out, birthdays and anniversaries, and it's really neat, Treg. He'll get comments after services from folks, because he'll stand there as they're leaving,
Yeah.
and it's a regular occurrence to hear, you're the first pastor that's ever called me, and you're
Yeah.
hearing this from a senior adult
Yeah.
that's been in
Yeah.
church for 40 or 50 years, and so
Yeah.
he's really in tune with that, and the
That's
church
great.
really responds well to that.
That's great. Now, do you come alongside and help him with that? Hey, these are the anniversaries and birthdays coming up, or does he have a secretary that does that?
No, his ministry assistant puts all that on his
Okay.
calendar,
Okay.
and she's good about making sure that those things hit the calendar. She stays a week or so, I would guess, out in front of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Oh, that's
But
good.
so every morning when he gets up, he's got it's on his calendar. Hey, these are the three people I need to call. So name and phone number,
Yep.
so he can just literally tap his phone
Yep.
calls, and it just takes a few minutes, but it means so much.
It's amazing. I mean, it's truly amazing how sometimes it's just the little things. But I think again,
Hmm.
in ministry, we say, "Oh, well, I'm too busy, or I've got too much going on." And in reality,
Sure.
it takes what, 6 minutes, 7 minutes to make an impact.
Well, it doesn't take long. I mean, and
No.
we do so in our education ministry. We'll do a 3 week, what we call a 3 week report. If someone hasn't
Okay.
been in their group for 3 weeks, they turn up on a report that the each of the ministry heads receive, and
Okay.
they call them. So the Sunday school teacher should be calling them if they've been out for 1 or 2 weeks. Then on third week, the minister responsible for that area calls them, and the pastor gets a week 4 report. If you've not been in your group for 4 weeks, you're getting a call from the senior pastor.
Uh-oh. That's great. But I mean, we answer for their souls, right? I mean,
That's right.
that's our calling.
It
And
is. And so they deeply appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's really good. And we would, yeah, I think all of us would do better if we were more diligent in those areas,
I agree.
um, to do that. And so,
I've
okay.
learned a lot from him.
Yeah, that's really good. I love it. That's why I was kind of bringing it up, because I know these guys are listening. I think a lot will be able to learn from him.
Sure.
I did birthday cards when I first became the pastor here at Faith. I did the same thing. So I just wrote a birthday card. And
Hmm.
the exact same thing happened to me. An 80-year-old gentleman came up to me and said, "I must say, that's the first time in my entire life I ever received a birthday card from a pastor."
Wow.
And I'm sure other birthdays, other people, but it was something different because it came from the pastor.
Yeah, and we'll send so in staff meeting we'll go around the room. Hey, does anybody know somebody that needs a touch? And
Oh
we'll
yeah.
drop a card in the mail. Everybody will just write just a brief little something. Hey, we're praying for you today,
Hmm.
Pastor Chris, Pastor Josh,
That's good.
whomever, and it goes in the mail. So not just those important milestones, but just
Yeah,
somebody that's dealing with something that we're aware of. Just send them a
that's
note of
good.
encouragement.
And I think that's fantastic too. And even if some assistants are listening, I think that's what you said, always be busy. that's a great ministry for assistants to be,
Hmm.
to be involved in that, and, talk to the pastor about it. And you could do the card and just say, hey, pastor, we put your name on there, or just a
Yeah.
little note praying for you. And assisting that is great. We sometimes, I think, in certain circles, we get so caught up on growth, on width, that we miss the depth. And that's what you're talking there. That's the important.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a really really neat practice, and as I said a few minutes ago, our congregation really responds well to
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I love that. And so, Chris, the other thing I wanted to talk about is education.
Hmm.
Just with your journey on education and what you've been through with your multiple degrees. And I know, I have a little thing, the things I wish I'd have done early in my ministry. And number one has to be finish my education. And
Hmm.
I did not do that, as it was just a variety of reasons, from not encouraged to do it to, not having the money to do so. But what would you tell the guys that they're listening? Let's say, they've got an undergrad, they're working maybe part-time in a church, or maybe even full-time as a youth pastor, assistant pastor. And man, I don't have the time to go back to school, or I just don't know if I need that. What's your take, and what would you encourage them to do?
Well, I didn't go to college to start my undergrad until I was 30.
Okay.
And so I was a little late to getting to school myself. I didn't start seminary until it was the year I turned 39, but I was still
Okay.
38 at the time. It was the beginning of the year.
Wow.
So
Good for you.
it was I just deeply, deeply believe, Treg, that a call to ministry is a call to prepare. And that can
Mhm.
look like a lot of different
I love
things.
that.
Um,
Yeah.
but but we're called, you just said it a minute ago, we're called, we're responsible for people's souls.
Yeah.
And so the deeper our preparation, I think the better.
Yeah.
The investment in going after an advanced degree is an investment in your church. It's an investment in your ministry for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And so if you can do it, if it's feasible financially, if your schedule can work. I know a lot of your listeners are maybe bivocational pastors,
Yeah.
and they're already working a 40-hour full-time job, and then they're pouring into their church,
Yeah.
and their schedules literally may not allow for it. But if you can work that out any kind of way, I would deeply encourage people to consider it, and consider it hard. There's so many education delivery has come so far so fast in the last decade, and now all of our Southern Baptist seminaries have complete Master Divinity programs that can be done online.
Wow.
Other degrees, other Master of Arts degrees, specialty degrees, those kinds of things. And you don't have to leave your current ministry setting, pack your family up, and move to, three
Yeah.
states away. You can do it. You can do it in the
Mm.
evening, at home, after work or after church, on your computer.
Yeah. Now, is that what you did with Liberty? Chris, did
With
you?
Liberty, I did, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. And how
My
did that
my
go?
my
How was that experience for you?
I tell you, the my I have my undergraduate and MBA were both in seat, so I was in
Okay.
classroom
Yeah.
several times a week, and that was challenging with small children. Liberty was 100% online, and I tell you, the biggest thing about that, Treg, is it was kind of lonely. And
Okay.
and part of and so the blogging
Yeah.
kind of sprung out of that too, and then the
Yeah.
interaction that I had with people through that,
Yeah.
really helped me, because we were getting into stuff. My wife would proofread a paper, when I'm in an English class or something, and that's all fine and good. But, we're over here in homiletics and tossing around Greek and Hebrew words. And she got to a place and said, I can't proofread this for you. I don't have
Yeah.
any idea what you're
Yeah.
saying here.
Right. Right.
And so the online is a little challenging, because you don't have folks around you every day sharing the journey.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I could
Mhm.
see that. But still, even if that's all we can do, that's well worth it.
Absolutely. And I had developed relationships with people back in 2009, 2010, 11, and we've stayed, close, through social media. I've had an opportunity to meet a number of people in person that I first got connected to online because of my
Yeah.
educational journey. And so there are people out there in the same place that you are. And God will bring some of you together, and
Yeah.
it'll bless
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really good. Well, Chris, I mean, thank you so much, brother, for coming on and being part of the podcast today and encouraging our guys in this role.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, man, we'll definitely be doing this again soon and continuing this. And I know that that's been a benefit and an encouragement to all of us. And now I'm going to have to go make some calls and wish some people happy birthday.
Well, you do that, Trey. God bless you. God bless your ministry.
Brother.
And I can't wait to see the next podcast.
Awesome. And anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach out to you if they have any further questions?
They can email me. Probably my Gmail account is the best way to do that. chris.sanchez2@gmail.com. They can visit my website. There's a contact page there at drchrissanchez.com. And awesome. Those come right to my phone, and I'm pretty easy to track down.
That's awesome, Chris. Yep, I found you I found you and didn't even know you existed 2 weeks ago. So